Look. Oh, oh fuck. Whoa, shit. Ow. Howdy, my name's Workshop Lewis, and hopefully everyone had a good break, Christmas, New Year, whatever you celebrate. Hopefully everyone enjoyed themselves. I know I feel a lot more refreshed, and I'm really ready to finish the ute. I forgot something. Where'd I put it? Where did I put it? There it is. In one of the previous episodes, I made a temporary cable which goes from the chassis to the tailgate that then takes the weight, so when we sit on it, it doesn't flex as much. Over the break, I went to a place called Flexible Drive Agencies and got a real fancy one made up. So we've got a female rose joint that can be extended out, and we've got the bit that goes to the tailgate all sorted. There is some assembly on this cable. Flexible Drive Agencies made this. We've got an 8mm thread and then the end that gets attached to the tailgate. What we need to do is, the other end is a little bit more complicated because we want to have adjustment on it. So we've got to cut and then tap all the way down. Now, I think I am going to modify these in the final instance. This isn't the final form of this. The end goal would be to get a bit of metal like this, drill and tap a right-hand thread halfway, drill and tap a left-hand thread halfway, and then get a left-hand thread heim joint. So then as you undo this, it'll undo them evenly, and we can keep this plane the same as the other end. Easy to adjust the length, easy to use in the end. We want to be able to set this up, so we're going to cut, drill, and tap. If you haven't done much thread tapping with a hand tap, do a turn and a half, maybe 2 turns, then turn it back, you feel the chip break, then keep going. Just helps to not break the tap. Locking nut on there. We now have the second cable. We can now work out how we attach the cable to the chassis. I did legs the other day, quite stiff. Anyway, so we've got the cable attached to the tailgate. We've got a spring washer in between the cable and the plate, and then a copper washer in between the nut and the cable. We now need to work out how to get the cable attached to the chassis. And I think the best way to do that is going to be removing the striker, adding a plate onto the back of it, and then having a lug come out the back, so then it can just slide on and we can put a nut on that and then hold it in position. Then when we close it, it'll be out of the way. So I think to do all of that, our best bet is find a lathe. Luckily the boys at Solid can, thank you very much, let me use their lathe, and I think we're just going to head over there, machine that part up, come back, and then we can work out the plate that we need to design for the back of the striker. Sick. Got our fancy little lugs, weld-in dealies, if you will. Now these can get welded to an extra plate. They can slide through, and then we can just put a nut on there, and that is a secure fixing from the chassis to the tailgate. We need to work out what we want it to look like, and to do that, we're going to make a template out of cardboard. And if we're cutting shapes out for a template, you got to use shapes cardboard, obviously. I think the best way to do this is going to be to take this off. We can then trace around it on cardboard and then add the shape that we want, and then work out where exactly we want this little lug to sit. So we'll take this bad boy off other side because the nuts aren't welded on the back here. I'm glad I remembered that because I did that like a month ago. This is what the other one looks like. They're not welded on. Didn't want to weld them in until I was sure everything worked together. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? Let's cut it out and see. I reckon we could probably bring it in a little bit actually. Probably doesn't even need to be that big. I reckon we put a little radius. Yeah, that's better. That's better. I like that. A little bit neater. Maybe look a little bit more factory. And then that would be mounted there, and we've got enough meat around this to then be able to weld on the back and give it a good amount of rigidity. God damn it. Extend it out. When you close the tailgate, it's probably further like that, it will come back up, come up to there. I think that's going to work really well. I'm going to weld this one up. I then have to take the other one apart, weld the nuts on the back, weld the plate onto the back of the striker, but that's it. That's this is the last thing that we needed to work out as far as the tailgate's concerned. That's sick, and that looks pretty neat. All right, time to weld. It is really hot, and my camera's not dying. Thank you again, Leonard. The settings that we changed last summer are still going all right with the camera, but I'm finding it where I'll put my microphone receiver on charge, but I can't charge it because the microphone receiver is already too hot. So the camera's not dying, but the microphone's getting real low on battery. It is warm. On the other side, I had this little bracket sitting in the same spot, and I cut it out, which I didn't realize how much tension it was taking. Bowed out the rear quarter, and this is set really nicely. I've got to work out how to just cut out a section of it so then it's clear, which I think is going to prove to be quite difficult. How did it get in there? Huh? We have proper equipment. I'm not going to weld up this whole plate until I've done the other side, latched it, made sure it all works. I had to get the support welded in before I could put the plate on. So hopefully it's all correct. Hopefully I don't need to unpick anything. But that's looking pretty damn good. And it's all gonna work. It's all gonna work. Get the other side buttoned up to this level, not buttoned up. That implies that I'm gonna finish welding it, which I'm not gonna do. But I'll get the support welded in and then the plate tacked in, get the latch on, then we can put the tailgate back on and see if it clicks still. If it clicks, we've made some really good progress. That side's in. That side's in. Let's see if this works first time. No. I think I need to adjust that side. Let's see if we've got enough adjustment. We don't have enough adjustment. So it is just the other side. What have I done wrong? I remember what I did wrong. So when I first welded in that side, I had the packers set it correctly, but then closed it to make it so the latch was in the right spot and then tacked it in. Dang it. So I've just got to cut the plate out and then get it in the right spot and then tack it. We'll give that a go. And of course I did a tack behind here, so I need to take this off. And I also did a tack in a really bad spot to unpick, which is a shame Dang it. So when you're tacking something together, it's not just about tacking it together. You really want to make sure that if you're not sure if it's going to work, you put the tacks in somewhere easy to cut out. Not like I did. I'm going to go grind all of these down so they don't interfere with where the plate needs to sit. So hopefully this side still works, although I haven't adjusted it, so it might not. It does. Yep, that's still sitting good. That needs to be pushed over, but we can do that when we weld this plate in. And it's not to say that there is a correct or an incorrect position where this bar goes, but there would be bad spots and like slightly more efficient spots. I need a drink of water. What? I think that's latched. Yeah, it is latched. Tack that bad boy in. Tack that bad boy in. They need to be adjusted, but that works. Sick. Look. Oh, there's a slight amount of adjustment that I need to do. This side needs to be just adjusted in. This side needs to be adjusted out. There's a little bit of movement in there, which I think I can get that out. I'm gonna do all of that off camera, and then we can put the straps on, and then we can sit back on the tailgate, and hopefully it's a little bit stronger than last time, because it wasn't really held on there very well to the chassis. But now we got these fancy little lugs. I'm gonna adjust these, get it all sitting nice, and then we'll come back. All adjusted. They were latching at the exact same time just a second ago. Sick. All right, let's put the straps on. Let's not put the strap on. Let's put the straps on. That's pretty sick. You'll be able to see them inside the tub, like that. You'll be able to see them inside the tub. They'll always be visible, but I mean, it's just part of having a ute, isn't it? Really? We're nearly there. Not quite. When you put weight on the end of the tailgate, it still bounces, and this wants to pull the tailgate in, so it's sliding on the slides like it's designed to do. But there is a fix to it. If I have this latching point have a notch, another notch on this rail, then when you pull it up, it will eventually lock into the rail and it won't be able to push back and forward. It does mean that when you want to put the tailgate back up, you still need to use the handle to release this latch. Looks pretty good though. I'm pretty happy with it. Like, it's all gonna work. I mean, it isn't yet, but it will. We've got both of these out now, and part of the issue is they have a lead in. So as this slides down, it will eventually click into the notch down the bottom. When we bring it up, it's going to be able to stop hard on the top face of the notch that we're going to cut up here. But because it's got the lead in down, it means it will be able to move back down. And we're trying to stop the tailgate from being able to push further that way. So I think what my plan of attack for this one is add some weld to it, so then I can get this to just be basically a tube. Well, not a tube, a circle. And then it will have a hard stop on both sides. And we want to try and make it so we get this notch really close to where we need it to be, so there isn't movement back and forward, which is going to need some very precise measuring and a very precise cutting. On the plus side, this slide piece isn't welded to the hinge properly or completely just yet. So if we need to, we can cut this off, get another piece, clean it up, and use the first one as a guide. But I'd prefer to not have to do the next piece. Let's just get it right the first time. Still got safety shoes on. Let's get these bad boys welded up. Success. Round with the little flat that was already there. I don't need to mess with that. Actually, I probably should put a flat on the other side. I didn't even think of that. Well, I did think of that just then. All right, I'm gonna just go put a flat on the opposite side because I assume that that is just so it can sit hard up against something without that round. The round would put too much pressure on the bar and eventually just wear it out, whereas the flat is there, should sit flatter for longer. Give me a second, I'll come back, and then we can install these back into the tailgate. Then we've got to measure where everything needs to go. I might actually be able to just put a little pencil mark somewhere and then go from there. Give me a second. Factory flat, custom Lewis flat, 455, 455. So I'll mark that. Now we can install them. I think the sequence is, before I put these back in, take the tailgate off, notch those out, and then slide it all together and hope that it works. It should work. There's no reason for it to not work that I can think of. Put it all back together off camera and did some measuring. This point for the cable, I've welded in the wrong spot. I'm about 10 mil out. This cable is loose because of it. I don't have any more adjustment on making it shorter. That one's out about 10 mil adjustment, so it kind of all makes sense. I've got to cut this one off, move it out, measure it up. But with the latches now engaging on the slides, it's way sturdier. And I can even take my feet off. Look at that. That's so sick. I did have someone else sitting on the tailgate with me yesterday, and when he took his feet off, we heard a little clunk, and I think that's because the cable is attached to the strikers. The weight was just too much for it, and I hadn't done the bolts up on the strikers enough. Hopefully that means as long as I tighten them up enough, it should be good for 2 people. You wouldn't want to dance on it, but I mean, it feels pretty sturdy now, and when I tighten this one up, it'll feel even better. Now, with all of that, when you come to close it, you do need to release, which releases the internal latches from the slides. How sick is that? Yes! And it is sturdy. I think because we've made the internal latches bigger, the lower cutout on this slide is still a little bit high. So it's sitting up a little bit, but if I just knock a little bit more out of that, it'll sit down properly. So we've got to modify this attachment point. Just before we crack on, I want to say hello to Nick. So for the first time, someone recognized me because they've seen the channel. It was sick. They ordered a t-shirt straight away. Nick was visiting from interstate, ran into me at my bottle shop job, said hello, came and had a look at the car. It was a terrific experience. So hope you're doing well, Nick. Now let's get back onto the mounting point. So I'm not completely sure what's happened with all of these dimensions. If I measure from the bottom to where it was sitting, it was in the right spot. If I measure from the top down, it's 10 mil out, which doesn't completely make sense to me, but it definitely needs to be moved up 10 mil. I'll get the mark, tack it on, see if it fits, and hope that it fits. Yeah, it'll fit. But I don't understand what dimensions are out for it to be wrong from the bottom. Doesn't completely make sense to me. One thing I have learned on this project is not everything needs to make sense as long as it works. So let's go with that. That's art. Don't drop it in the light. Yes. That is also going to be hot. I'm going to let this cool down for a second first. I feel like I'm going to burn my fingers. welded that back on yesterday, then finished up yesterday driving around trying to find hex bar for the adjustment. Ended up at a place called Dinky Die Engineering. They had the hex bar, asked if they sold the left-hand threads. They had them, but he offered to make the parts that I needed for basically the same price. So I was able to get someone else to do it. Then went back to BRK Carts, got the left-hand threaded rose joint, and let's make sure that the threads are correct. I gotta go the opposite way. All right. Doesn't quite bottom out, but there we go. So it looks very similar to what we had before, but it's a left-hand thread on one side, and now it is a right-hand thread on the other side. So as we, let me move the camera. Now, as we undo this, it's gonna undo it from here and here. So we can adjust it all the way out. Then we can put our nut back on. And now we can tighten it up to take tension, which is right there. And then we can do our locking nuts up. It's far more adjustable. I can adjust it without having to take anything off and undoing things and then putting it back on. If I want it longer, I can just spin that out. If I want it shorter, I can just spin it in. So we're just taking the tension off of that. I'll do the other side, and that is like, that's the cable sorted. Took a lot longer than I really wanted to, but it looks really neat, tidy, and it's got proper adjustment in there. Sick. Let me do the other side. I really want to test something. This could be a horrible idea, but I've done this on every ute that I've owned, and I mean, what better time to test it? This could be the bit where I break my leg. Normally in a ute in Australia, if you need to get into the tub, because our utes or pickups are smaller, you can put the tailgate down, step on the tailgate and get into the car or into the tub. Sick. All right, now to get off. Yes. Sick. Yeah, okay, cool. So that's taking all of my weight now. That feels real good. Sorry. Just had to take a moment for myself there. Sick. Now, I did a short last Friday, went pretty well. Still kind of ticking along of me stepping up onto the tailgate and it being fine. So this morning when I came in, I probably got a little overconfident. I sat here, I had the mechanic sit here, and it didn't hold us both. But the weak point was the latching mechanism locating into the cutout from the slide mechanism. I know how to fix it, it's just a bit of messing around. I'll probably do that off camera, but it means I can't sit on it or stand on it currently. We will be able to, and it's probably still a good thing because it means I can fine tune where the weak points are and where I need to work on the mechanism. We're now at a point where I need to start working out this top panel, and I've got some steel. Give me 1 second. I've got some steel. I'm going to get it sitting correctly where I want it to sit and then mark the radius of the boot on it. And then we're going to take it to Southern Classic and Customs, get them to roll it up on the radius, put a nice curve on there. And then once we've done that, we'll match it to the radius over here. So there's probably going to be a long weld line along the top of it. We'll panel beat it, do what we need to do to make that look pretty. But I think if we do a sharp sharp angle straight down, it's not going to look quite right. Won't really look OEM. There's a little bit of cutting on the tailgate that we need to do before we can do that. I'll cut that, mark it, send this over. I'll now be able to just extend this bump across and just cover this whole panel, which means these won't be visible. It means they won't be able to undo themselves as easily, or like they won't get knocked at all, and that's good. Now sort the other side out, and we are going to have to mess around with what's going on down the bottom here, but later. Drop the tailgate and that panel off to Adam at Southern Classic and Customs. Thank you again, Adam. Big help. In the meantime, this morning I sent a bunch of photos off to my engineer, Sot at Motor Vehicle Engineers, and he got back to me really quickly and said, yeah, cool, looks all good. So that means we can start welding everything together. To fix the rear quarter panels, if you remember, we detached the main frame from the chassis. So we've got to weld all of those back to the chassis, and then we disconnected the kind of roll cage from the frame. So we've got to clean all of the paint off and weld all of those together. Once they're kind of cooled down, we can blow it all out and we can re-coat all of the bare metal. That's going to take a bit of time, so hopefully by that stage the panel for the tailgate's back, because we can't finish welding all of the structure for the tailgate in until we've got the tailgate back, because we just want to make sure we're welding everything in with the right gap. So we'll go on with all of that stuff I just said, and hopefully we'll do the tailgate after that. Now we have to re-weld the cage to the frame. Now I've painted this with some black paint, and I think there's a pretty good chance this is going to come back to haunt me because it's a bit of a hammer tone paint. So I've got to wire wheel this off to get it kind of clean before I weld it, but that's going to put whatever's in the paint into the air, which might make it very difficult to paint the car in the end. So what is this, episode 48? I just need to make a mental note of this exact scene, so when I'm editing the video of me painting the car, I can come back, get this footage, cut it back into the video and go, yeah, I was right. I did make a big mistake. But we'll see how we go. I've wire wheeled it off, and I do not want to blow it into the air. I want to try and capture as much of it as I can, so let's give it a good old wipe down. Now that rag can't be used to wipe any paint down or anything that's going to be seen or painted in the long run. Whoa. Oh. Whoops. Oh, fuck. Whoa, shit. That was the brake cleaner that I sprayed down the wheel arch. Whoop. Don't do that at home, eh? My bad. I think I need to take the front seats out so I can come in from here. Yeah, I gotta take the seats out. So not everyone watching this will be aware that I have functioning M4 seats in the car. So let me get the battery out. I need to remove them, so I gotta plug them in. Hey, look, they still work. So we wanna move them all the way forward, undo the bolts, move them all the way back, undo the bolts, so we can get them out. These are controlled by a custom Arduino controller underneath. So they've been rewired and still using the same motors and all of that, but we should just be able to run power to the box to get these seats to run when we're doing all of the wiring harness. And we went with the M4 seats because we still want to have this function right here to be able to take the seats in and out or get to behind the seat. I'll get the driver's seat out and then we can weld up the rest of the back there. Needs a good clean, and we need to get it all one color, but not right now. We got stuff in there, back of the tub to do. Definitely ain't going anywhere. It was way easier to weld that in when I didn't have the rear quarter panel on. That's the structure welded back together. I think I'm gonna get a drink of water and think about what I can do next. There's gonna be some more welding, I would guess, but I need to work out where that should be, and I don't know. Give me a second. It's been a good morning already. I've already gone to Southern Classic and Customs, picked up the tailgate. They've already done the panel. They did a terrific job, as always. But what that means is I can now reattach the tailgate to the car, gap all of the rear quarter panel to the tailgate, because it's close, but it's not quite there. There's a lot more strength in there now, but we just need to cut a weld down the bottom here so we can pivot over a little bit more, and then we can weld all of this in and just be done with it, which is sick. So we need to take a couple of things off, get it all sitting nice and neatly with the tailgate where it really wants to be in its final form, and then weld all of this up. Yes, we're getting real close. I can almost, maybe this episode, but probably next episode, I think we're gonna start attaching panels. I reckon I've said that for probably 3 or 4 months now, but we are actually getting there. Oh, it's gonna be so sick. All right, this side is, the notch isn't as low as it needs to be since we did that extra round on the locking pin. So I'm just gonna pull it out, touch that up a little bit, and then we'll try again. Sitting lower, but now that catch is in the wrong spot, so I'll adjust that. Everything's sitting in the right spot. Maybe. I reckon the hinges need adjusting. I'll do that now. Tweet. Oh, my elbow. Ouch. Oh, that stings. I think the last thing that needs adjusting, and the only thing that's left to adjust, is this one. I think it just needs to come in a little bit more. And we want to make sure that this is all sitting correctly, because we're about to final weld the rear quarter panels in. And if we do this incorrectly, it's not good. Sick. All right, now we can weld in the rear quarter panels. This side isn't too bad, but at the bottom here, this bit kicks out. So I'm gonna weld in the top, cut the bottom and push it over, and then that gap is about what we're after on the other side. On this side, the gap at the bottom is all right, but it opens a fair bit up the top, and it's really quite rigid right now. Like, it doesn't want to move at all. And I think since I welded this plate in down the bottom, you just can't pivot it. So hopefully cutting that will get a little bit of movement. We can close that up and then just weld it all in. I heard something let go. Yeah, cool. A little bit more movement in there now. I'll move the camera around the side so you can see the movement. Bowing out. Something's not quite right here. I know this is kicking in. Let me straighten that first. That helped it a fair bit. But it kind of looks like this panel is bowing. And it's not as straightforward to fix that as I was hoping. I need to look at this for a little bit. Give me a second. I think I've worked it out that that little bit of clunking noise is the structure and the latch getting caught on the striker. I think I needed those strikers that I've made with the plates. I think I need to thin those plates down and make the radius a little bit smaller so there's more clearance on all of the fiddly bits on the inside. Which means all of that setting I just did, I need to redo again. I thinned down the width of this and it gave me a lot more adjustment and movement. So it really was fouling on the slot that I'd made quite badly. Just need to wait for this car to drive in. They'll turn their car off in a second. Yep, there we go, sick. Oh, and next door's making noise, perfect. Anyway, we slimmed it down and it made a big difference. When I cut the bottom tack, I noticed that when I welded this plate in, I put a spacer and a spacer to make sure that the distance, the step down was the same. Now, it's not the same up here. So I think this plate needs to be cut out. I need to trim out the back of the support and then weld this plate back in, because when I push the rear quarter over, this back piece of metal fouls on something for the latch as well. So I can't get the gap right with it sitting how it is currently. So there's still a lot of fiddling around, but I think I've got a pretty good direction on how to fix all of it. And I mean, everything just needs to be set up as best I can before I weld everything in, because I don't want to cut anything out again after having to cut it out already. So let's fix all of these problems. Cut a little bit off the top of the piece just to give it a little bit more clearance from hitting the top panel. We do kind of want to try and line up the marks from where I've welded it in previously, because we do need to get the bolt holes in at the right height. Slightly out is fine, lots out is not fine. That looks considerably better. So hopefully that means we can just push it over a little bit more, close up the gap properly. Give it the old tackaroony. There's a slight bow in the post panel. Just because I cut so much out at the back of it, it just kind of released it a little bit, but that kind of fixed it. I think before I do anything else, I bolt the striker back up, make sure it all closes properly still. Then we can, with the tailgate closed, push this over and get a tack in right in the corner, because that should hold it, and we can weld it all together. Yes, that gave us enough. Okay, now we can tack that in. I need my gloves back on. Heaps more movement. It still moved heaps. What? Why? When I cut that, it didn't, like, let go. What the hell? Something else was holding it? What? We'll be right back. So the first problem is I'm finding it hard to hold it across in the spot that I need it to while I'm welding. So let's get rid of the first issue and then see if putting a couple more tacks into it will fix the springing issue. Fix one thing at a time, I guess. Sweet, that's in the position we want. I'm gonna put some more welds in and hope that this fixes it. I'm gonna let all of that cool a little bit before I take the tension off. I hope that worked, because that's gonna be real time consuming to unpick if that didn't work. So let's shut this. Yeah, we look good, we look good. It's not bad. It definitely didn't spring back as much as I pulled it over. So it has held it a little bit, which kind of makes me think I should have pulled it over further, welded it, and then done it. But what I might be able to do is still do that. There is still more to weld. And the thing about welding is you put a lot of heat into a corner. You put a lot of heat into a corner, and as it cools down, it pulls it closed. So I might be able to just add more weld onto it. Interesting. But I did just weld some stuff in, which is sick. Let me have a look and a think before I do anything else. The good side, and I think also a good side now. I've had a look at it, and the main issue we've got is the indicator plate kind of bows in. I think it might be because this is holding a fair bit of tension, but if I undo, for that to spring out, that has to spring in. And I mean, the gap is a little bit smaller down the bottom. I can try, but it could be a gigantic mistake. I could possibly put a couple of welds in the middle of that face, which would pull it back out. But I think I need to have a think about this, because I don't want to mess this up. I've had to think about it, and I think the first thing I should do is see if I can fix it without putting any heat or anything into it. So if I can take the indicator out, maybe try and bend it, kind of manipulate it into the shape or where I need it to be. It's probably under a bit of tension, so we don't want to try and push it out, pop welds, and then the whole thing just collapses. That would be bad. So this out, see what we're dealing with. Oh, I do notice that you can push the indicator in and kind of push it out. So there is some movement in there. And let me just get so that fix that I did before didn't really fix it. It still dips in about 1 millimeter there. So we might need to try and get that out. I don't know how much of that you can see on the camera, but it is definitely bowing in. I might be able to cut the weld. Now that I've got proper leverage, push it out from here. Let's see if a little bit of gentle persuasion helps it. Closer, closer. I think this weld is the problem. I think that if we can undo that one and maybe just the top one here, we then should be able to, it might even pop out. Someone just brought in the gas petrol car and I can smell gas right now. So I'm probably not gonna angle grind right now. So Just give me a second. That looks significantly better. Like I was saying, it still needs to be pulled over a little bit more, but I reckon that's fixed a lot of the problems, which is sick. We're back to where we were. Feet are off the ground. I've fixed the latching issue. The issue was the hook that goes into the latching mechanism was on a slight angle. I put the two flats on, but they were sitting on an angle, so it wasn't really catching on the cutout. This side's looking pretty good. I do need to tack the rear quarter back to the little post. I think I'm ready to weld everything in, but I'm nervous. Just in case I haven't thought of everything and there's something I've missed and then I have to undo it all. I think we just weld everything in and hope that I've gotten it all sorted properly. I really need to do this base panel because this bit really cuts into the back of your legs. I think it's going to be a welding montage. I think we just do it. I put too much heat into the panel. Oh, and I should have taken the tail light out. Oh, the indicator. I definitely should have taken the indicator out. That's really quite bowed. As you can see, that's definitely not what we wanted. Dang it. Ooh, obviously, you shouldn't weld with plastic right next to it. And I definitely should have done it slower, putting less heat into it. I may be able to cut it and then form it and weld it back together, but that's not what I wanted to do. It's fixable, but I really didn't want to have to. It's bowed quite badly. Luckily the indicator didn't melt on the inside. Definitely one of those cases where you think about stuff for so long and you think, hell, I'll just get a bunch of stuff done. I'll just think about it less and just completely ruin it straight away. I'm gonna have to cut. Hopefully the cut relieves enough tension and then I can push it back in, weld it, blend it, clean it up. Would have been good to not have to do that though. And I mean, it's pretty sturdy, all welded together. Dang it. Relatively easy fix in the end. It's still not as good as it was before, but I should be able to tap it, fill it, and it'll be fine. And in reflection, probably not the worst mistake, in the sense of with the amount of welding I'm about to do to this car, it is an extremely good reminder to worry about how much heat I am putting into everything. Because this tiny little panel was quite an easy fix. I sat down, I moped for like 15-20 minutes. I fixed it in like 15-20 minutes. Some of the bigger panels that I'm about to attach to the car might not be that quick of a fix if I mess up. So I'm going to use this as a good lesson to be a little bit more patient, especially with welding, and go a lot slower when it comes to welding. Don't just blast the heat in and go, it's probably fine. So, kind of a positive, bit of a silver lining. Let's not do that again. We're going to finish welding up the rear quarter to the panel that I've just repaired. We need to weld in the plates around the hinges, and I think we need to take the rear bumper off and see if we can get the welder in to the back of the support posts. We'll go back to hopefully a welding montage without me going, oh, what have I done? for at least a little bit, hopefully. That's all the structure welded in. So again, I'll let it cool down. There's bits that need to be cleaned up, but none of them immediately. None of this down here is seen at all. So all we need to do is make sure that it's primed and isn't gonna rust. Solid progress this episode. Really happy with what we got done. I said I fixed the locking mechanism and I broke it because two people sat on the tailgate. We just sat on the tailgate, didn't break. So we're there, fully load bearing, and as you can, like, it's sick. I'm so happy we're done. I promise the next episode won't be tailgate related. There may be some parts, but the majority will not be tailgate related. I think we're now in a position where I can just start painting a bunch of things, and then we can do base panel, rear window panel, and roof. I'm calling it. That's what we're doing in the next episode, so stick around. If you're new, please subscribe, makes a big difference. I want to say a big thank you to Space Jockey for letting me use their new music. Album came out in November. I've enjoyed listening to it quite a lot. I'll leave their Instagram and all of their details in the description. Thank you again to all of my Patreons for sticking around. We've got some big news kind of brewing. I think over the next period of time, I'm going to start introducing parts of the next project. I know we've still got a lot of work to do, but I need to start finding the right chassis because we've kind of sorted out the engine. So if you know of a rolling shell of something interesting, a coupe, a two-door, say top contenders currently are a Datsun 240Z or a Mazda RX-7 FD. If you know someone with a rolling shell who wants to see it turn into something really sick, really cool, let me know. I do have other social medias, Facebook, Instagram. I post stuff to both of those every now and then as well. Check me out on those ones. Same name, stuff in the description. Cheers. Ooh. Done. Done. Done, done, done.